Okay, so in this final set of videos, we're going to just wrap up this form, add in a couple of additional components, and then you'll have a completed form and you can start creating one of your own. So here are learning targets there that we can identify and apply the different HTML tags to create a web page form. You'll be able to describe the way data is sent in a form in name value pairs, and we'll look at this a little more closely today as we finally add a submit button here. And then you'll be able to finally finish creating a web page form using appropriate HTML tags and attributes. So next we're going to dive right back in, and we're actually going to add in what are called radio buttons. So we're going to add these two radio buttons in. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my form and I'm going to add in a new paragraph tag and then close that off so I can add my information in between. And I'm just typing, would you like to receive our email newsletter? And what I want to happen is I want it to display the options yes and no, but notice here that we're going to use some radio or what are also called option buttons. And these are when you can only select one choice from a set of choices. They're what are called mutually exclusive. So you can only pick one of those two buttons. So here I'm going to add in an input tag for each. And what I'm going to do here is their name is going to be exactly the same. Their name is going to be, you can do answer, you can do newsletter, I don't care. I'm going to do answer here. So we'll do newsletter answer as the name. Here I'll do name equals newsletter answer. But they have to have the same name so that your browser knows that these are linked in the form. They have the same name, they have the same type that's equal to just radio. And then here it's in the value where they are different. So here our value will be yes, and here our value will be no. So we're adding in these radio buttons right before those words yes and no. And then from here you can see that their values are different. So here we have name, they have the same name, they have the same type, this links them together, and then you have different values. And as a result, you will only be able to select one of these. So if you save this and you run it, what you will see is that you can only select one. If you select yes, it unselects no. If you select no, it unselects yes. That's how you know for a fact that your radio buttons are for sure linked. So as I said before, notice that they have the same name. I changed it to newsletter answer, but you can name it whatever you'd like. If you had more than one set of radio buttons, each group would need its own unique name. They also have a unique value to distinguish between the options, and each is followed by text so that you know what the button actually means. Now from here, we're going to add in that text area box. So we've added in shorter text boxes. Here we're going to add in a text area box, which gives you some more room to actually type. So this is appropriate when you actually need some extensive input or multiple lines of input from a user. A lot of you have seen these. If you've had to fill out applications for anything school related, you'll normally get a couple more lines if it requires a longer response. So that's what we'll be creating here. Now, something to remember about, I clicked a little too far there. Something to remember about your text area box is that it has its own tag. So this is a lot like the select tags, where the text area box also has its own tag. So here I'm going to actually put a paragraph of text above. You can see from here we actually had some text right above. So I'm going to write, what other types of illustrations, in addition to those shown, would you be interested in purchasing? And if I close off that paragraph tag, that's actually going to bump it to the next line. And then from here, I can start a text area box. And here we can actually then immediately close it off. We don't need to put any text in between unless we want text to actually appear inside of the box. So here we have text area box. We're going to give it a name, and we can just call it get data from the user. In this case, it might be better to call it, additional art or something like that. Remember, the rows dictates how many lines down this is going to go. So we have rows is equal to 5. So it's going to have 5 rows of text. And columns, I'm going to set it equal to, we'll do 100. So we can look at it and then we'll shrink it down to 50 to see what it actually does. So remember, the columns tell you how many characters across. So this has a columns of 100. You'll notice here that if you change the columns to the 50 that I have in the PowerPoint, that it only goes 50 characters across, 5 lines down. You could then type within that little box there. Now, something that most students wonder is why that text area tag has 2 tags, a closing and an opening, and here you can say type here, and if you put that in between, it'll actually say type here in the box. So it'll give it a value right off the bat. And you can actually do this in any of your boxes up here. So I did that in between the text area tags down here. But if you wanted, say, your last name, you wanted this text box to have something in there, you could do value equals type last name, put that in as your value of your text box, and that will actually make it appear in here as well. So it'll give it a value to start. Obviously, you do not have to do that. Generally, people do not. But if you want to put text in that box before they actually type in there, you can add either values or just text in between the text area tags to add that information right on in. You should now have that added in there, and you should see that text box on your screen. So then the last 2 pieces that we have to add in are the submit button and the reset button. So remember, the submit button sends information in input controls for processing. So it sends all of the information that's been inputted to an email address, in our case, in those name value pairs. And then the reset button will essentially reset your entire screen. It'll reset all the values back to the default. So we're going to add these in. Now, something I want you to note as we do that, so here I'm going to do input, and we're going to do type equals submit, because it's going to be a submit button. Something I want you to note is that these only need type and value. Now, something I want you to note about the value is what appears on the button. So you can write submit form here. And if I save this, submit form here will be what appears on my button. Now, I don't like that this is right up next to the text area box, so I'm going to add in a break tag there. But I can do press this button to submit. So whatever you put inside of the value is what is displayed on your button. So kind of keep that in mind as you're working. So I'm just going to change this back to be submit. And then the reset button works in the same way. We do an input, we do a type is equal to reset button, and you can do value equals reset form here. And remember, whatever you put between those value tags is what appears on your button. So here, if I type things in, if I click things, and if I click reset, it all goes back to that default. Now from here, if I were to type in, so if I actually filled some of this in, Wardecki, Sarah, give myself a street address, we'll do Mukwonago, Wisconsin, 53149. We pick the picture we want. We have the visa. I enter in my credit card number with an expiration date. Yes, I want to receive the newsletter, and I would like to receive some watercolor. So I've now added all that in there. If I click submit, what will happen is an email will pop up. And when I say name value pairs, I mean look very carefully in here. You see, and this is where I think this is really cool that your computer can do this and where it can be really powerful when tied to a database, go through one at a time. This says last name equals Wardecki was what I entered. Name, value entered. The name of the input control, value entered. The name of the input control, value entered. And it does that for every single thing. Pick type, I want the full. Pick type, I want the ink. Payment, Visa. So when I say name value pairs, This is what I mean will happen when you go and share or send that email.